Hey, everybody, welcome in. I'm Matt Norlander, of course, co-host of the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. It's just me for this live, something of an emergency episode, I guess, to discuss the punishments that came down on Monday night from the Big Ten. And as it was described, I mean, the Big Ten, Wisconsin, and Michigan jointly came together to make these punishments. So let's go right off the top. If you are watching in real time, you likely know the punishments. And if you're watching afterward, you certainly almost know the punishments. But I want to be specific here. So Michigan's Juwan Howard, he's going to sit for the finality, the remainder of the regular season, 5 games. So that is that's it. He has a $40,000 fine, and then he'll be able to return once the Big Ten tournament gets rolling. More on Howard and the suspension in just a minute. The 3 players who were seen on video throwing punches are going to sit 1 game, and they'll sit for the next game, of course. Michigan's Terrence Williams, Musa Diabate, and then Wisconsin's Jacoby Neath all will sit a game. My interpretation of this is that the Big Ten literally just went to the rule book and said, you can't do this. If you throw a punch, you sit a game no matter what. So they will sit 1 game and 1 game only. And then Greg Gard is the only coach that was addressed in terms of any kind of punishment. He was fined $10,000 versus Juwan Howard's $40,000. So notably, there was no suspension for Greg Gard and nothing, period, for Wisconsin assistant Joe Krabenhoft, who was assaulted by Juwan Howard and who got into the scrum and certainly didn't help de-escalate matters there. When the Big Ten put out its statement, here's what the commissioner said. Big Ten Conference coaches and student athletes are expected to display the highest level of sportsmanship conduct. I'm grateful for the partnership with Michigan Athletics Director Ward Manuel and Wisconsin Athletic Director Chris McIntosh. Our expectation is that the incident yesterday will provide our coaches and student athletes with the opportunity to reflect, learn, and move forward in a manner that demonstrates decorum and leadership on and off the court. The Big Ten's release also notably included that Ward Manuel proactively addressed a 5-game suspension of Juwan Howard. I believe that might be because, per Howard's contract and how things stand with the league, it cannot suspend Howard for more than 2 games for just about any incident. And so anything more than that, Michigan would have to actually enact. And so enact it did. Ward Manuel going for 5 games is not that surprising to me. Michigan also put out a statement shortly thereafter. Juwan Howard said, quote, after taking time to reflect on all that happened, I realized how unacceptable both my actions and words were and how they affected so many. I'm truly sorry. Continues, I am offering my sincerest apology to my players and their families, my staff, my family, and the Michigan fans around the world. I would like to personally apologize to Wisconsin's assistant Joel Krabenhoff. It's a typo. It's Joel Krabenhoff in the statement. His name is Joe. Michigan has since followed up to indicate that the intention was to have Krabenhoff's first name correct in there. But nonetheless, the copy editing process at Michigan failed here. Joel Krabenhoff, it is in the initial statement, and his family, too. It continues. Lastly, I speak a lot about being a Michigan man and representing the University of Michigan with class and pride. I did not do that, nor did I set the right example in the right way for my student athletes. I will learn from my mistake, and this mistake will never happen again. It ends, no excuses, with an exclamation point. Michigan accepted the full disciplinary actions, as did Wisconsin. And I will note, by the way, that Phil Martelli, as expected, will coach Michigan over the next 5 games. He's the lead assistant and was brought on with much intention by Howard when he got the job because he's a veteran former head coach. And there will be at least, it says, prior to reinstatement, all parties will meet to make a final decision prior to the Big Ten tournament on any postseason participation. So it's not an automatic that Juwan Howard's going to return to coach Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. I fully expect that will be the case, though. I'll also note I've read off of the Big Ten statement. I've read off of Michigan statement. I'm told that a Wisconsin statement is not necessarily imminent yet. So that's why we're doing this podcast now. There might be something that comes late on Monday, or maybe there's nothing that comes at all. I couldn't help but notice there was no apology directed toward Greg Gard. Not even that necessarily there should have been, or we should have been expecting that, but Howard did apologize to Krabenhoff in doing that. So let's talk about this suspension. For Howard and for everyone else and the punishments there. For the players, I'll be quick on it. I think 1 game is completely appropriate. You can't ball up and swing and then not sit. You got to sit at least once. So that's what they're going to do. We move on. That was my expectation. That's what came to be. With Howard in 5 games, we had a dribble handoff earlier on the site on Monday at cbssports.com. And we were basically asked to assess what we thought would be the most appropriate punishment. I said 5 games. I said for the remainder of the regular season, while not knowing at that point, honestly, I had no idea. In my heart of hearts, I thought it was going to be at least 3. And I thought the maximum was just nothing for the rest of the regular season. I truly didn't believe Juwan Howard was in line to be fired. And I truly didn't think that I'd be hopping on an emergency podcast to talk about a 1 or 2 game suspension for Juwan Howard. I thought it would be maybe 3 if really it went light. But if you told me it was for the entirety of the Big Ten play, including the league tournament, I would have believed that as well. I thought 5 was most appropriate. And that's certainly what we have here. But if you kind of look around at what's happened, and this has been the lead story in American sports for more than 24 hours. The All-Star game was fine. You had the Elam ending. LeBron hits it. MJ shows up for halftime looking like an absolute baller. That was a great little thing on Sunday night, right? A kind of a palate cleanser after what we saw go down in Madison. But the All-Star game did not overshadow what happened with this fracas there, and it became the lead story beyond anything with that or golf or NASCAR or anything. And I kind of feel like the punishments all around were a little bit lighter than I was expecting. I was texting with Nada, our producer, before we got on. My expectation, I thought, I could see Guard getting a game, Krabbenhoff getting a game or 2, and I thought that would have been fine. I thought it would have been practical. I thought it would have been reasonable, but that's not what we have here. We have Juwan Howard sitting for 5 games, 3 players that threw punches. They didn't start this fight, but they're going to sit for a game, and then Guard's going to get a fine that is 25% of what Howard's fine was overall there. I sometimes think that when it gets into an incident happens and then the suspension or the punishments come down, I kind of hate our media cycle, how we can, run these processes through the absolute ringer. And then it's almost like an outrage race about who can be the most pissed off about the severity of punishments and all that. So I'm not going to do that here. I'm just a little surprised that you didn't at least have, Krabbenhoff was more deserving of a suspension than Guard, in my opinion. Just a game. He did not de-escalate the situation. So if he doesn't get involved in there, it's reasonable to say that maybe Howard's not even put in this situation to begin with, and instead you've got maybe fines and just a general reprimand, because it's really Howard taking a strong swipe at Krabbenhoff that we're even talking about this. Like, if Howard doesn't do that, then obviously the players almost certainly are not doing what they wound up doing there. So for the record, if you're curious on the Michigan games that they're not going to have their coach on, and I might take 1 or 2. Your boy here is willing to improv and go real time on these pods, by the way. So I might take 1 or 2 questions in real time to wrap up. This will be a generally pretty quickie pod here, but we wanted to address it and at least serve the YouTube audience live. And I think we might squeeze this into the regular podcast feed as well. The Michigan games that Howard will not be on the floor for. Rutgers is a home game on Wednesday. 4 home games in a row. Rutgers, Illinois on Sunday. The Tuesday after that, home rival game, Michigan State. Iowa at home to wrap the regular season at the Chrysler Center. And then we'll close out on the road against Ohio State. And oh, by the way, Michigan's 14-11. I wouldn't have them in the field right now. I don't know if Howard getting a 5-game sit down and then not having Diabate and Terrence Williams. I mean, he plays like 35% of the team's minutes. Him not being available for the Rutgers game, I don't think is going to make or break that at home for Michigan. I think Michigan's actually destined to just miss the tournament. I think it's going to be a 1 or 2 seed in the NIT. I think Michigan's got to get 4 W's to be in a good spot from an at-large perspective. We really thinking it's going to do that? Rutgers, Illinois. Rutgers fighting to get in. Illinois easily in. Michigan State easily in. Iowa's looking better. We'll see, though. That's winnable. And then at Ohio State, then you got the Big Ten tournament. Depending on where they get seeded, that first game, whether you win or not, quad 2 at best, it's going to have to do better than that. So we'll see on that. I thought Kevin Ward. I also want to know what took so long. Just I was told this thing was coming out in the afternoon. I was preparing with all of that. And the longer this took, the more I thought, okay, then maybe we're going to have something extremely notable here in terms of suspensions. That's not what happened. By the way, if you're watching, please do hit that like button. If you want to smash it, you can do whatever you want. You can rub it, tickle it, smash it, nudge up against it. Just please, for me, if you could, I'd greatly appreciate it. To everyone that's watching live in the chat, I appreciate that as well. Now, if you want to pick out a question or 2 and drop it in the private chat that you think might be relevant, I'm willing to answer one or two as we go in real time here. As for Wisconsin's endo, by the way, of course, no suspensions with any of its coaches. The Badgers will next play at Minnesota on Wednesday, and then at Rutgers on Saturday. So how about Rutgers, man? Your next two opponents are the two that were involved in this. And in the meantime, Steve Peichel, who's like Steve, there's a lot of really nice men that are head coaches at programs across this country. Steve Peichel genuinely is in the top 10, inarguably. He's in the top 10. And so I just find it funny, like the nicest coach in the conference now sees himself going up against a Howardless Michigan, and then he'll go up against Greg Gard in Wisconsin as well. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit perhaps stronger of a stance on the Wisconsin end of it, but it's not the end of the world. Juwan Howard deserved the worst of it. We talked about that before. Here's a question. Why do you have a breaking news podcast about Juwan and not one about the real news? Did GP get his phone back, and how much did it cost? Listen, I can't confirm or deny whether that man has his phone yet. I don't know. So anyone watching this that doesn't know what we're talking about, you're going to want to go back and listen to the Sunday night podcast. Well, after we got through the basketball talk, Gary Parrish lost his cell phone. I can't confirm or deny. You might have to wait until tomorrow. Who knows if or Wednesday? Who even knows if Parrish will be on the Wednesday podcast at this point? So I'm not quite certain on all of that. Otherwise, I genuinely hope that this is something that we never have to talk about again. I sincerely mean that. Can anyone watching recall the last time we would have had a situation like this? There was something that was brought to my attention. In 2003, I'd forgotten about it, and then when I saw it, I was like, I remember when this is a thing, and it wasn't as bad as what happened on Sunday. In 2003, Matt Doherty, when he was coaching at North Carolina, Chris Collins, in the stiffest, most oversized tan suit you've ever seen in your life, looking absolutely ridiculous. Someone get me Chris Collins on the phone right now and get a sartorial analysis of what the hell he was wearing that night. Collins gets in Doherty's face. They have to be separated. Rashad McCants was kind of involved. This is as the game is still playing out at that point, that era for North Carolina basketball. I'm sorry, UNC fans. I'm not trying to hit you with a stray here or anything like that, but that's the last time I can remember coaches in a somewhat similar situation. I actually watched the video earlier today. Mike Krzyzewski actually, he kind of massages the situation, gets Doherty to the side, very understanding. But man, I can't remember when the last time we had something like this. And so my point is, hopefully we will not have something like this yet again. I got a question here from the Llama Whisperer. It says, considering this is Juwan Howard's second coach altercation in 2 years, how much leniency will Michigan give Juwan going forward? I don't think they're going to give him almost any. Now, he is an alum. He's one of the most famous alums in the history of the school, obviously. But he had the Turgeon thing. Now he's had this. Any kind of physical altercation with Juwan Howard going forward, if it were to ever happen again, surely we must agree that it would be a termination situation or a resignation situation, barring, let's hope we never even get to that point. If Howard is struck first or what, don't even want to envision that, but you get what I'm saying. If he is the instigator in a situation like this again, then that's going to be all that we're going to have with this. And he knows that. His statement reflects it. I have to note that at least he did walk it back the next day. Now it took a day. And, when you have these statements, it's not a human being sitting with the microphone in front of him like this. And who knows? I'll take him at his word. It's his name. He puts his words to it. But sometimes, come on now. Like, I work in this business. There are some times when players or coaches or ADs, they'll put out a statement. How much of it actually they believe is another matter. But it's a statement officially for the record. And he said, after taking time to reflect on all that happened, I realized how unacceptable both my actions and words were and how they affected so many. I am truly sorry. I'm offering my sincerest apology to all his family, Michigan fans, and personally apologizes to Joe Krabenhoff. So there you have it. It's wild to think where Michigan was in the preseason. Top 5 team in the eyes of many, has won 3-game win streak this season. Only one. And otherwise, it's been rickety. It's been a roller coaster, and it's been a problem here. I'll be interested to see big picture, like where the Michigan program, what Howard does from here. And are we talking we're talking Michigan Wolverines basketball a year from now, right? Is this a team in the top 25? Is it a team is it a team that's coming off being in the top 16 bracket reveal in February of 2023, right? Or is it a team that's in this spot again? Because Juwan Howard's reputation really, especially obviously before 48 hours ago, but more particularly like heading into the season was, man, this is a former NBA player that's going to do it. He's come into Michigan and he has found a way to really make this work. Nothing but positive vibes around that program and around what he's been able to do. And I just wonder, like, I think there's a chance here for Michigan. Howard's son is coming to play with the program next year. Side note, I love his game and can completely see him. I can completely see Jet Howard being the kind of player who's like a good freshman, decent sophomore, and then by junior year he pops and is like a top 20 player in the sport. So there's a good future ahead. We wait and see on that. I've got another question here. How many coaches will be baiting Howard in every game now? None. Really, I understand the question. I don't know if it was tongue in cheek or not, but the answer is none, in my opinion. There, I don't see that being the case. And I do want to at least bring you in a little bit with a couple of phone conversations, a lot of text messages from coaches. I mentioned this on CBS Sports HQ as well. I've heard from head coaches and assistants in the Big Ten and outside the Big Ten. At this point, I probably had contact with close to 15 of them. There wasn't one I heard from who was outright dismissive of like Juwan Howard needs to step down. He needs to be fired. I did hear from a lot of coaches who said, man, Greg Gard does deserve some blame for this. He did not de-escalate the situation. Greg, come on, just take the turnover kind of deal. And again, this is different from the opinion I shared on the podcast Sunday night. These are other coaches, head coaches and assistants in power conferences. So they have been involved in obviously high pressurized games and everyone's kind of going through it. It's the end of February. That's another thing I heard. Coaches are like, listen, man, this is no excuse whatsoever, but just to kind of bring you into our world, man, like we cannot stand like the final 8, 9, 10 days of February. It is an absolute grind. Everyone wants to get to March. The kids are sick of hearing our voices. You keep going up against teams in conference play. You're going on the road. It wears you down physically and mentally. And so there was some empathy from other coaches saying like, I get it how both these coaches, maybe they just cracked in a certain way because we all kind of lose our minds. Like our wives hate us at this time of the year. March is even more stressful, but at least you're there. Like you're on the big stage. So that's a little more of a backdrop overall, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I got one more here. I got a question from Jimmy I'll take, and then I'll wrap this up. I don't want to go too long. Sorry if this was asked, I just arrived, but how does the Big Ten explain the difference between the suspensions these players were handed as opposed to Alan Griffin's suspension? That's actually a good point. I tweeted this out on Sunday. You'd have to kind of go back in my timeline a bit because I've tweeted it a few times since then. In 2020, before the worst pandemic of our lifetimes hit, Illinois' Alan Griffin stepped on Sasha Stefanovich's chest. I mean, it's straight out of the Aminu Timberlake 1992 Christian Laettner. It's almost the exact same kind of deal. And for that, Griffin got a 2-game suspension. So if the question is, where's the consistency? Kofi Coburn violated NIL rules that wouldn't be a violation anymore. He had to sit for 3 games to start the season. So I get all that. All I'm saying is, listen, if you are looking for any kind of consistency, reason, or logic when it comes to conferences or the NCAA handing down punishments and suspensions, you are just not going to get it. You're not going to get it. And I don't have an issue with the players only getting a game. I do think they needed to be sat for a game. Again, you can't ball up and start throwing and then not have any kind of discipline. This wasn't even a review. Let's make a decision. This is an interpretation. As I understand, it's an interpretation of the Big Ten's rule book on this. So them getting only a game when the players did not start this. They did not start this, okay? They have to be held accountable. They got to be sat for a game. But I understand if you're like, well, wait a second. Like this guy steps on Stefanovich's chest. He gets 2. And the guys that are throwing punches around, they get 1 in this. I'm actually okay with it. I am seeing a comment. There's a different commissioner. Yeah, that Kevin Warren was not the commissioner of the Big Ten at the time when that happened as well. At least I don't believe he was. January 20. I don't think that was the case. But that was if he did, that's right when he got there. That's shortly after he got there. So anyway, that's another deal altogether. That's about all I got here. I don't want to keep you too long. I can go though. See, no GP here. You think I can't talk? You think I can't hold this mic? You think I can't go on this stage? Mom spaghetti. By the way, side note, never seen 8 Mile. We will be back for Wednesday morning podcast, full-fledged. It's going to be a fun one. Hey, if you're watching or listening now, I may just do, we might do a regular episode. We might do a little mailbag special to tag on at the end of that. We might try and maximize a little bit. So might be able to have a little fun with that. Thank you for watching. If you're not already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Why? For moments exactly like this. When there are big moments in college basketball and they require something of an appetizer-sized podcast in video form. If you're subscribed, liking the channel, if you have not already liked this video, please do. You will get alerted. You can watch in real time. If you're sitting there watching right now, getting locked in, Indiana, Ohio State on a Monday night Big Ten action, you want to watch this on the side? Well, we'd love to have you. And please continue to spread the word. The channel has really, not only has the YouTube channel grown a lot, the downloads on the podcast traditional feed have done well. And I think that's a testament to what we're doing here. But also, if you have people in your life that just, they get enjoyment out of following college basketball, just like you, just spread the word. We'd love to have more listeners. Continue to love to have the feedback from all of you. So thank you for stopping by. This has been Matt Norlander. Smash the like button on your way out, and we will be back with another episode on Wednesday morning.